You are standing in a city you have never been to before. No phone, no map, no way to contact anyone back home. You need to send a message hundreds of miles away, and you need it to arrive fast. What do you do? For most of human history, that question had no good answer. You could send a runner. You could hire a rider on horseback. You could light a fire on a hilltop and hope someone understood what it meant. But none of those were reliable, none of them were fast, and none of them were secret. Then someone had an idea so strange it sounds like a mistake. They decided to trust a bird. Not just any bird, a pigeon, a creature that most people today associate with park benches and leftover bread. And yet, for thousands of years, the pigeon was one of the most sophisticated communication technologies on Earth. The question is, how did anyone figure that out in the first place? The answer starts with something called homing behavior. Pigeons have a remarkable ability to find their way back to the place where they were born, no matter how far away you take them. Scientists today believe they navigate using the Earth's magnetic field, the position of the sun, low-frequency sound waves, and even familiar smells. They are, in a very literal sense, living GPS units with wings. But ancient people did not know any of that. What they knew was simpler. They noticed that if you took a pigeon far from home and released it, it flew back, every time, without fail. That observation, that single repeatable fact, changed the world. The earliest records of pigeon messaging come from ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt, roughly 5,000 years ago. Soldiers and traders began carrying pigeons with them when they traveled. When they needed to send word back home, they released the bird. The pigeon did the rest. It was not complicated. It was not sophisticated. It was just a pattern someone noticed and decided to use. The ancient Egyptians used pigeons to announce the arrival of important ships along the Nile. The Romans used them to carry results from the gladiatorial games back to waiting crowds in distant towns. In Persia, a network of pigeon relay stations stretched across the empire, allowing messages to travel faster than any horse could ride. And here is where it gets interesting. These early systems were not accidents, they were engineered. People built lofts. They bred specific birds for speed and endurance. They developed ways to attach tiny messages to the bird's legs using hollow reeds or small capsules. They figured out that you could only send a pigeon one direction, home. So they built networks of lofts and shuttled birds back and forth to make two-way communication possible. This was not stumbled upon overnight. It took generations of observation, experimentation, and refinement. Researcher Colin Gerlmack, who studied the cultural history of pigeons extensively, described this relationship as one of the longest and most consequential partnerships between humans and any animal. Longer than dogs in warfare, longer than horses in transport. The pigeon-human communication network lasted in active military use until the 20th century. Think about that for a moment. From ancient Egypt to World War I, the same basic system, the same animal, thousands of years of unbroken utility. By the medieval period, pigeon post had become a formal institution in parts of the Middle East. The Sultan of Egypt, Nur ad-Din, established one of the most sophisticated pigeon communication networks ever built in the 12th century. His system connected Cairo to Damascus to Baghdad, with relay lofts positioned at regular intervals. Messages could travel from one end of his empire to the other in under 24 hours. That was a speed that no human courier could match over that distance. Merchants in Baghdad used private pigeon networks to receive advance notice of commodity prices in distant markets. A trader who knew what grain was selling for in Cairo before his competitor did had an enormous advantage. The pigeon, in this context, was not just a messenger, it was a financial instrument. In Europe, the Rothschild banking family famously used pigeons to receive news of Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo before anyone else in London. That advance information allowed them to make trading decisions that, according to historian Niall Ferguson, contributed significantly to their fortune. The pigeon did not just carry words, it carried power. But go back further. Go back to the very beginning of the question. How did the first person figure this out? The honest answer is that we do not know exactly. History does not record the name of whoever first watched a released pigeon bank sharply in the sky, correct its course, and disappear in the direction of home. That moment happened in anonymity, somewhere in the ancient world, probably more than once, probably independently in multiple places. What researchers like Daniel Haag-Wackernagel, a biologist at the University of Basel, who spent decades studying the pigeon's relationship with human civilization, suggest is that the discovery was almost certainly incremental. Pigeons had been domesticated for food long before they were used for messages. People kept them in lofts, they watched them. They noticed the homing behavior because they were already paying close attention to these animals in their daily lives. The leap from noticing to using was not a sudden invention. It was a slow accumulation of observations. Someone saw a bird return. Someone released another bird farther away. Someone thought to attach a small piece of material to its leg. The technology emerged the way most ancient technologies emerged, not from a single genius moment, but from a long chain of curious people asking, what happens if I try this? And what they built with that curiosity held civilizations together. During the siege of Paris in 1870, when Prussian forces surrounded the city and cut off all ground communication, the French used balloons to fly pigeons out of the city. Those pigeons were then used to carry microfilmed messages back in. Messages so small they required a microscope to read, carrying news and military dispatches from the outside world into a city of 2 million people who were otherwise completely isolated. One pigeon could carry the equivalent of thousands of words. The last official military use of carrier pigeons by the United States Army was in 1957. The British disbanded their pigeon service in 1948. The technology that began in ancient Mesopotamia, refined over 5,000 years, finally became obsolete less than a single human lifetime ago. And the pigeon is still here, still in your city, still on that park bench. You walk past them every day without thinking twice. You probably find them annoying, but the bird you just shooed away from your lunch is the direct descendant of an animal that carried battle plans for Roman generals, delivered financial intelligence to medieval merchants, and kept an entire surrounded city connected to the outside world. You never figured out how to do any of that. The pigeon did. The next time you need to send a message and you reach for your phone, remember that for most of human history, the fastest way to do exactly that was a small gray bird that knew the way home no matter how lost you were. It still does. Subscribe for more.